In the small, dusty village of Umwakoro, a 16-year-old boy named Chisholm had already lived a life that felt far older than his age. His body was young, but his soul carried the weight of years filled with hunger, rejection, and silent tears. He was tall and lean, with deep brown eyes that often looked empty, as if they had seen too much pain too early. His skin was roughened by sun and dust, and his palms were hardened from years of carrying loads far heavier than should ever rest on a child. His mother had died when he was only 10, her life taken by a fever that no one in the village could afford to treat. She had been his only comfort, the only voice that ever called him "my son" with genuine love. His father had vanished long before that, leaving nothing behind but rumors and unanswered questions. After his mother's burial, Chisholm was taken in by his uncle, Zubi, a thick-faced man with a loud mouth and a heart as cold as night rain. From the very first day, Uncle Zubi made it clear that Chisholm was not family, he was labor. "You will eat here only if you work," Zubi had declared, pointing a finger at the thin, trembling boy. "No lazy bones in my house." And so began Chisholm's routine of suffering. Every morning before the sky could even stretch into light, Chisholm would rise from the thin mat on the cold cement floor, wash his face with water that stung from the night's cold, and pick up his black plastic bucket filled with sachet water. He would walk miles to the noisy motor park where dust, sweat, and the smell of fuel filled the air, shouting until his throat burned. Pure water. Cold, pure water. The other boys his age went to school. Some played football barefoot on sandy fields. Some laughed with friends, shared jokes, and spoke of dreams. But Chisholm's world was different. His world was hunger, shouting, bending, running from angry drivers, and counting coins that were never enough. His slippers were torn at the front, showing 2 dusty toes that had lost feeling long ago. His shirt clung to his skinny body, damp with sweat. Yet every evening, when he returned home, Uncle Zubi would take the money from his palm without even asking if he had eaten. "You think life is easy?" Zubi would scoff. "If not for me, you'd be sleeping in the gutter." Chisholm said nothing. He had learned that silence was safer. Then, on one unusually hot afternoon, something strange happened. The motor park was louder than usual. Conductors shouted, engines roared, horns screamed, and people rushed in every direction. Amidst the chaos, a long black SUV appeared, shining like it did not belong in such a dirty place. It moved slowly, smoothly, almost arrogantly, until it stopped near where Chisholm stood. The back window rolled down. He froze. A woman sat inside, unlike anyone he had ever seen. Her skin was smooth and dark, glowing under the daylight. Her lips were full, painted deep wine red. Her hair was long and glossy, falling over her shoulders like silk. But it was her build that stole his breath. Her arms were thick, firm, sculpted with muscle, as if she lived in a gym rather than a mansion. Her posture spoke authority, strength, power. She lowered her dark sunglasses and pointed directly at him. "You, come here." Chisholm looked around, confused, thinking she meant someone else. "Me?" he asked timidly. "Yes, you," she repeated calmly. With hesitant steps, he approached the SUV. His heart hammered so loudly he thought she could hear it. When he stood close, she studied him carefully, as if weighing his entire existence in her mind. "What is your name?" "Chisholm, madam." "And your parents?" He swallowed. "My mother is dead. My father disappeared. I stay with my uncle." For a moment, something unreadable flashed through her eyes. Sympathy, interest, calculation. He couldn't tell. She reached into her bag and brought out a thick bundle of Naira notes. She placed it in his trembling hands. "Eat well today," she said softly, "and don't sleep on the floor tonight." His eyes widened. 10,000 Naira. More money than he had ever touched in his life. "Madam, I didn't do anything," he stammered. "I know," she replied. "That is why I'm giving you." Before he could even gather words of gratitude, the window closed and the SUV rolled away, disappearing into the noisy distance like a dream. He stood there for a long time, staring at the money as though it might vanish. That night, Uncle Zuby snatched the cash from his hands immediately. "Where did this come from?" he demanded. Chisholm explained with a mixture of fear and disbelief. His uncle listened, then burst into loud laughter. "Looks like your miserable face finally attracted blessing," he mocked. "Pray she comes back tomorrow." 2 days later, she did. The same black SUV. The same calm voice. The same powerful presence. This time she brought food. Real food. Jollof rice, spicy chicken, cold drinks, cake, and a brand new t-shirt. She watched him eat with quiet satisfaction, as if feeding something deeper than hunger. "I'll come again," she said. "Stay where you are." Uncle Zuby's eyes shone with greed. "If she wants you, give yourself to her," he whispered later. "Rich women don't just pick boys like you for nothing. This is your chance." Chisholm laughed nervously, but inside, something was shifting. Days later, when she returned, her tone had changed. "Chisholm," she said, gazing directly into his eyes, "do you want to leave this life?" He nodded immediately. "Do you trust me?" A pause. A breath. A silent prayer. "Yes, madam." "Then marry me." The world tilted. His head spun as if struck by lightning. A woman like her? Wealthy, powerful, confident. Wanting him? A poor boy who sold pure water? "You will not suffer again," she continued. "You will have everything." By the following morning, arrangements were already made. Uncle Zuby celebrated as though he had sold gold. Papers were signed. The small village gossiped endlessly. The wedding was quiet. No choir. No joy from her side. Just 2 silent bodyguards, cold stares, and a strange heaviness in the air. As she slipped the ring onto his finger, she whispered, "You belong to me now." He did not know why those words made his skin crawl. They drove to her mansion, a massive white structure standing behind tall iron gates like a kingdom sealed from the world. The floors shone like mirrors. The air smelled of wealth and mystery. He was given everything he had never known: clothes, food, phone, bed, comfort. "You can sleep alone for now," she said softly. "I will wait." It sounded kind, but his heart felt unsettled. Over the next days, the unease grew stronger. He noticed strange patterns. Her late-night walks. The locked black door at the end of the hallway carved with unsettling symbols. The warnings from the cook. The silence that clung to the air after midnight. Then one night, at exactly 1 a.m., he heard her footsteps. Slow. There. Purposeful. He watched as she moved toward that forbidden door, and opened it. An eerie red glow leaked from beneath. And that was the moment Chisholm knew. He was not in paradise. He had entered something far more dangerous. The red glow beneath the black door flickered like the heartbeat of something alive. Chisholm stood frozen at the far end of the corridor, his bare feet cold against the tiles, his breath shallow, his heart hammering so hard he feared it might betray his presence. He watched as Madame Kimmy slipped inside the strange room and slowly closed the door behind her. Click. Silence swallowed the hallway. For a long moment, he didn't move. Then he crept forward, step by cautious step, until he stood right before the door. The carvings on it seemed sharper at night. Twisted shapes of snakes, birds with hollow eyes, and symbols that made his skin crawl. A faint hum vibrated from the other side, accompanied by whispers so low they felt like they were inside his skull. His hand trembled mid-air. But fear held him back. He returned to his room, unable to sleep, staring at the ceiling as questions filled his mind. What was she doing in there? Why was the light red? Why all the secrecy? And why did the atmosphere of the house change whenever she entered that room? The next morning, Madame Kimmy behaved as if nothing strange had happened. She sat at breakfast, sipping tea elegantly, scrolling through her tablet, calm and composed. Her strong shoulders flexed slightly as she adjusted her robe, while her expression remained perfectly peaceful. "You slept well?" she asked casually. Chisholm lied. "Yes, madam." She smiled faintly. "Good." But his eyes kept drifting toward the hallway where the forbidden door waited. He noticed something else too. A faint dark mark at the base of her neck, almost like a bruise or a shadow clinging to her skin. That day, he called his only friend Ina from the village. "Something isn't right here," he whispered nervously. "There's a locked room. She goes there every night. And the light inside is red." On the other end, Ina was silent for a moment. "Chisholm, rich women don't marry poor boys for love," he said carefully. "If your spirit feels uneasy, trust it. Start planning your escape." "But where will I go?" Chisholm asked desperately. "Anywhere is better than a place where your soul feels trapped," Ina replied. The following nights only confirmed his fear. Every night at exactly the same hour, Madame Kimmy would rise from her bed and walk silently down the hallway, barefoot, dressed in a long dark robe. And every time, the same red glow would leak beneath that door. The cook, Madame Martina, avoided his eyes whenever he tried to ask questions. "Don't wander around at night," she warned quietly. "Some doors in this house should not be opened by the living." Her words made a chill run through him. One evening, as curiosity overcame fear, Chisholm dared to place his hand on the black door. The surface felt unusually warm, almost like skin. He pushed gently. Locked. He leaned in, pressing his ear against the cool wood. Low murmurs. A rhythmic chanting. The faint scent of burning herbs. Suddenly, the footsteps stopped behind him. He turned slowly. Madame Kimmy stood there, her eyes calm but sharper than he'd ever seen them. "This area is private," she said softly. "Do not come here again unless I ask you to." Her tone was not angry, but there was something final about it. Something dangerous. He nodded quickly and moved away, his heart beating wildly. That same night, his sleep was shallow and restless. At 1 a.m., he pretended to remain asleep as he heard her footsteps again. The moment the black door closed, he slipped out of bed and followed silently. He did not knock. Instead, he watched from a distance, memorizing each movement. When the red glow intensified, he knew he could no longer ignore the truth. The next day, he made his decision. He would find out what was in that room, even if it cost him everything. That night, when the house fell silent and Madame Kimmy vanished into the ritual room, Chisholm rushed into her bedroom, searching with frantic hands until he found her keys glinting on the bedside table. Heart pounding, he ran down the hallway, unlocked the black door, and stepped inside. The heat hit him first. Then the smell. Then the horror. The walls were draped with red cloth. Symbols carved in chalk covered the floor in circles and twisted patterns. Candles flickered everywhere, casting dancing shadows that seemed alive. In the center stood a low altar, and on it lay dozens of photographs. Boys. Young boys. Some smiling. Some terrified. Some with eyes that looked just as lost as his had once been. His heart dropped when he found his own photograph placed directly in the middle, beneath a burning candle. Before he could move, a cold presence filled the air behind him. He turned. Madame Kimmy stood there, her eyes glowing red. "You opened it," she said calmly. His knees felt weak. "What is this?" he whispered. "You want the truth?" she replied. "Then listen carefully." Her voice softened, but her eyes remained unnatural. She explained everything. She told him she had once been a poor girl, sold by her desperate parents to a powerful spirit in exchange for wealth. In return, she was given strength, beauty, and long life, but at a price. Every few years, she must marry a boy with a pure heart, drain his youth and vitality through ritual, and renew her life. If she didn't, her body would rot, decay, and die painfully. "You chose me because no one would notice if I disappeared," Chisholm said, his voice breaking. "Yes," she admitted. "But I also saw something special in you." His world shattered. "You lied to me." "Yes," she said without argument. "But you are already bound to the altar." Tears filled his eyes. "You will fall asleep peacefully," she added. "No pain. Just silence." Fear took over. That night, he escaped the mansion and fled to the village, barely breathing until he reached the hut of Mama Agatha, the known herbalist. She studied his face and sighed heavily. "You entered the house of Kimmy," she murmured. "The woman who walks between shadow and flesh." She gave him a charm to weaken Kimmy's power and a red stone to break the ritual. But she warned him sternly. "You must return before the 7th night. Pretend to forgive her. Gain her trust. And when the ritual begins, destroy the altar with all your strength. Do not hesitate. Do not pity her." Trembling but desperate, Chisholm returned to the mansion. Madame Kimmy knew where he had been. She could sense the charm, but instead of anger, sadness filled her voice. "I did not want you to suffer," she said quietly. "But I fear death more than loneliness." Her honesty twisted his heart even deeper. She promised him one final day to enjoy peace before the ritual. And as night fell again, the candles were already waiting. The altar was prepared, his white ritual cloth laid out, and the whispers of shadows returned. Chisholm knew the final hour was approaching, and this time there would be no escape. The night air inside the mansion felt thick, as if the walls themselves were holding their breath. Candles lined the long hallway, casting trembling shadows that shifted like uneasy spirits watching from unseen corners. Every step Chisholm took echoed softly, his heartbeat louder than his own footsteps. He was dressed in the white ritual cloth Madame Kimmy had prepared for him, silky and smooth, edged with thin gold lines that shimmered faintly in the flickering light. It looked like clothing meant for royalty, or for sacrifice. Madame Kimmy walked ahead of him slowly, her posture straight, her expression calm but exhausted, as if centuries of life weighed heavily on her shoulders. Her long dark hair flowed down her back, and the same strange glow that once terrified him now looked almost sorrowful. "Do not be afraid," she murmured without turning. "It will be quick." His fingers tightened around the charm Mama Agatha had given him, hidden carefully beneath the cloth. The red stone pressed into his palm, cool and heavy with purpose. They entered the ritual room. The air inside pulsed with heat. The red cloths clung to the walls, their edges fluttering as though moved by invisible hands. The altar stood ready, chalk symbols glowing faintly on the floor. The same photographs surrounded the circle, boys whose lives had ended so that one woman could continue breathing. Madame Kimmy guided him toward the center. "Kneel," she whispered. He lowered himself slowly, his knees touching the marked ground. For a moment, his mind drifted to the days when he shouted, "Pure water," under the burning sun, when his greatest worry had been hunger and humiliation. He never imagined his life would lead him here, between survival and the unknown. Madame Kimmy stepped forward, holding a small ritual knife, its blade gleaming under the candlelight. She raised her face upward and began chanting in a language that twisted the air around them, words heavy with ancient sorrow and forbidden power. The symbols on the floor began to vibrate softly. The candle flames stretched unnaturally. A low rumbling echoed through the floor, as if the house itself was responding to her call. Chisholm felt an invisible force pressing against his chest, draining warmth from his body, pulling at his breath, at his strength, at his very existence. Tears welled in his eyes. He knew. The ritual had begun. Madame Kimmy's voice grew louder, more desperate now. Her features shifted slightly, as if age tried to reclaim her all at once. Fine lines crept into her flawless skin, shadows darkened beneath her eyes. "Stay still," she whispered urgently. "It is almost done. You will sleep now. You will not feel the pain." His hand trembled. And in that moment, he remembered Mama Agatha's words. Do not hesitate. Do not pity her. With every ounce of strength left inside him, he hurled the red stone onto the altar. The room exploded with blinding force. A sharp wave of energy surged outward, shattering candles, scattering chalk symbols, tearing red cloths from the walls. The chanting shattered into one single piercing scream. Madame Kimmy staggered backward, her eyes wide, her voice breaking into raw agony. No, you must not interfere. Chisholm leapt forward, grabbing his photograph from the altar, tearing it in half, then into quarters, then into tiny pieces, each tear severing the invisible chains binding his soul. The altar cracked violently. The symbols burned. The occult energy recoiled like a wounded creature. Madame Kimmy collapsed to her knees, her body changing rapidly. Her perfect skin cracked, her muscles weakened, her hair turned gray, then white. Wrinkles carved deep across her face as the weight of a century returned in minutes. Please, don't, she gasped, reaching out toward him with shaking hands. Help me. I am scared. Her eyes, no longer glowing red, shone with something painfully human. Tears streamed down her aged face. I never wanted to become this, she whispered. They took my childhood. They sold me. I only wanted to live. Chisholm stood frozen, heart screaming in conflict. He saw not just the monster she had become, but the frightened little girl she once was, a girl traded for riches, trapped in darkness, terrified of death. But the charm at his chest pulsed hotter. Mama Agatha's warning echoed in his mind. If you stop, you die. With shaking hands and blurred vision, he forced himself to finish what he started. He ripped the remaining symbols apart, stamped the altar with his shaking feet, and broken pieces scattered across the floor. Madame Kimmy let out one final cry, a sound filled with ancient sorrow and fading power. Then her body collapsed. Not into flesh, not into blood, but into dust and pale golden ash, drifting slowly to the floor like the remains of forgotten time. Silence swallowed the room. The candles died. The red glow vanished. Only broken charms and a faded photograph of a little girl with hopeful eyes remained among the debris. Chisholm fell to his knees, sobbing. I'm sorry, he whispered. I'm sorry you suffered. But I wanted to live. The mansion groaned faintly, as if mourning the passing of something tied tightly to its foundation. The polished walls dulled, the vibrant decor faded, and the air grew cold and ancient. He stumbled out of the ritual room, body shaking, heart exhausted. And that was when he saw Ina standing near the broken gate. His friend's eyes widened in relief. You're alive, he breathed. Together they left the mansion as the structure behind them seemed to age rapidly, the walls cracking, the once bright building losing its unnatural shine. By dawn, it had withered into silence. Days passed. Nights brought restless dreams. But slowly, life returned. Chisholm found refuge in Ina's home, kindness in simple meals, comfort in quiet prayers. Mama Agatha visited once more, nodding solemnly at his survival. You broke the chain, she said. But remember, darkness always leaves a shadow. Time carried him forward. Chisholm refused to let his survival be for nothing. He began helping boys just like himself, hungry, forgotten, invisible. He spoke to churches, local leaders, anyone who would listen. And from struggle, a small shelter was built, Heart of the Forgotten. A place where broken boys slept safely, where voices were heard, where wounds healed. Every night, before closing his small room, Chisholm would open a tiny box and look at the last torn piece of Kimmy's childhood photo, the innocent girl she used to be. I hope you finally rest, he would whisper gently. Then he would close it and continue living. Not as a victim, not as prey, but as proof that even those who walk through darkness can return carrying light. Moral of the story. Not every monster was born evil. Some were once innocent children shaped by greed and desperation. But survival is a choice, and courage is louder than fear. No matter how dark the road becomes, the strongest souls are those who choose life, and then choose to help others live too. Question for you. If you were in Chisholm's place, would you have destroyed the altar, or saved the woman who once betrayed you? Tell us in the comments. What would you have done? And what lesson did this story teach you about power, pity, and survival?